Therefore, when we hear music from the area, we expect the music of Israel Roses.
Israel is a mere baby at 23.
La dernière génération.
Très techno que c'est, hein? Très techno-pop, c'est Israel Roses.
Whew, hardly sounds traditional. That's what Israel Roses is.
Israel Roses, c'est un chanteur âgé de 25 ans.
Young fella named Israel Roses. Here's a cut from a recent recording.
I'd like to think of myself as lucky to have had two significant experiences early in my life that helped form who I was to become. At the age of 7, I experienced my very first flight on a commercial airliner from Stephenville, Newfoundland to Toronto, Ontario. Wow. It wasn't uncommon to board an airline and only see half the seats filled. The day I flew was no exception. I remember the captain asking if I had any questions for him. I did. And as I peered over my sister's shoulder, I asked, "So when did we crash?" The captain chuckled and then looked at my terrified sister and claimed that that would not happen on this flight. I was invited up to the cockpit. I remember looking outside and then gazing at all those buttons and switches. It was amazing. The captain then handed me a pin, and it had a big pair of Air Canada wings on it. I was so proud. And upon returning to my seat, I told my sister that in the future, I wanted to be a pilot. The other defining moments for me came when I was just a toddler, and they came out of a small electric box that had big plastic knobs on it and sat on my parents' windowsill. My older siblings had formed a singing group called the Roses Sisters and had received many accolades from both local radio and television stations. Every day saw me in my mother's rocking chair or outside on the swing. This little AM transistor radio had introduced me to big band music, country, traditional, R&B, jazz, 60s, 70s, and of course the 80s popular music. From just listening to this tiny box, it heavily influenced me into pursuing an artistic musical career. At the age of 12, I recorded my very first of many pieces of music with my friend Michael Fenwick. It was Michael who got me started with audio recording, and since we were both enrolled in a French immersion program, the first in the province at that time, I found myself writing most of my compositions in both languages. By 13, I had my first bass guitar, and by 14 was well on my way with the creation of many musical groups. Sequence by sequence. Cell 13, Les Promeneurs, L'Alouette électrique, La Dernière Génération, Ti-Garçon, Lamix, and the Jazzy Blues Duo. Presently, I find myself again attached to yet another project, and for a change, I've been collaborating with Sean and David Carey. Although I never pursued becoming a commercial pilot, through the years I did manage to take a few private lessons, and on one occasion had the opportunity to fly around my homestead in Newfoundland. The music coming out of this new project is new and exciting. Where it takes us from here, we don't know, but getting here was well worth the ride. And the days will go on until we stop, so I'll keep holding on, keep holding, and the days will go on loving you, so I'll keep holding on. As a member of this project, right now, I was the only one that was born in Newfoundland, on the west coast, predominantly known as La Côte Française.
Our seeds were sown, I guess, if you like, in Manitoulin. Myself, brother Dave, and sister Colleen were born there.
My mom and dad were originally born in Newfoundland, of course. My mom's from Port-au-Port, and my father is from the East Coast, a place called Fortune Harbour. After they got married, they moved to Manitoulin Island, and my father worked there at the Department of Transportation. He heard of a paper mill opening up in Stephenville, so decided to move back in 1972. So that's how we wound up back in Newfoundland.
Her dad comes from a rich Irish heritage. Our mom also was very much a backup too. She would sit down for hours just watching us play. It was always a very encouraging atmosphere around the family towards music.
My dad was primarily a mandolin player. In his later years, he did move on to playing fiddle. He did sing a little and dance a little. My mom, a vocalist. And there's no doubt that's where everyone in the family got the singing bug from, was from Mom.
Originally, my father played everything by ear, all the fiddle music and guitar. But eventually he learned notation, and we picked it up that way.
My father and my brother Dave both knew that I would be the guitar player. It's where my interest was.
First instruments I think myself and Sean had in our hands were harmonicas. So I remember my father going to the music store in Cornerbrook, it was at that time. He came out with 2 harmonicas, brought them back, and they, you noticed when he got home, one was in G and the other in C.
He really excels on the violin and vocals, of course, pertaining especially to traditional Irish music.
Yes, originally the violin was the main instrument for me. Oh, I just loved playing. I'd get home from school every day, pick up the fiddle, and I had a list taped on the wall, and I'd start going down through all the tunes. And then eventually, when I started singing, the more I began playing guitar.
My influences, very, very widespan. It goes right from guys like Paul Brady in the traditional field, Davy Spruill, Artie McGlynn. My dad used to have Gordon Lightfoot albums. It's basically who I am today, you know. I'm a kind of a conglomerate of all these.
Under the watchful eye of my mother, my sisters had formed a singing group when they were quite young, called the Roses Sisters. Through their success, saw them play at multiple events, as well as guest appearances on television. Later in life, they would release 2 albums. Very well known for that time, yeah.
Having been raised in such a musical environment and having our own experiences as a singing family group, it comes to no surprise that Israel would pursue his own musical path.
I too was a singer, but it wasn't until my teenage years when I started developing my songwriting skills, and with that became proficient in a multitude of instruments.
Challenger. When I was 15 years old, we wrote this song called Challenger, and it had a profound effect on me, and I guess that's why we ended up calling the song that. We played together for most of our teen years. At some point I decided to be an actor. I wasn't a great musician. I think he's brilliant at what he does, so he kept going with the music. Years later, it all came full circle when I went to film school, and in my graduating thesis, Israel wrote the music for it. He did me a version of Challenger, and I stuck it in at the end of the movie. It was neat.
We were about 15, 16 years old when we started to write music. I think it started with comedy stuff because we like to laugh like most kids do. And then we got more into writing regular songs that you hear on the radio. Pop music was what I loved to do, and our songwriting progressed as we learned a new chord. So every time we learn a new chord, that's another song, that's another hit. and we became famous like 3 years after that. Yeah, the French side of the music, which Israel was involved in a lot. I was involved in it very little, but he got right into it. Ti-Garçon and La Dernière Génération did tours in Europe, playing all the summer French festivals and such. He did really well on the French side with his music, and that was one of the things I think that made him the person he is today. It was really good stuff.
The first real serious group I brought together was called La Dernière Génération, the last generation, and the significance behind the name was simply to demonstrate our willingness to uphold aspects of our French traditional culture, both through music and song. We had myself, my sister Roxanne, Alvin Felix, Michael Woods, and of course Ali Chasson. Could not forget him, because the first two songs I wrote were in collaboration with Ali. They were La Réalité and Cap Saint-Georges, On vous salue.
At the time, my brother came to me and said that he was looking for a different voice to add to the mix. So we got together and worked out some of the harmonies on the different songs, and we found that it really blended very well together. Israel decided to take it back to the band. They heard it, they listened, and it was a go from there.
Back then, when I was just starting out, so I figured that I wasn't that great of a singer, but so I said, well, you know what? I won't wow them with my singing, but I'll get them laughing anyway. So no matter what, they knew they're gonna have a good time, and that they were going to be entertained in some form.
I first saw Israel when my brother Tim had met him, and they were starting to form a band, and they'd be at our house. They were doing mostly music that Israel had written himself.
I was at my cousin Glenn's, and they had formed a group. I think they were called Genocide. It was a school band, but it consists of my cousin Glenn, Rick McFarlane, and of course Tim Carey. And when I heard them, I was really taken back.
I first met Israel through his cousin Glenn. Israel came to see us play one night. I soon found out that Israel was a very talented songwriter, working with multiple styles and genres. A few years later, I had an opportunity to play with Israel for an entire summer. It was a great experience. He's a very dedicated musician. Just recently, Israel got back in touch, and he let me hear the new material. I was very excited and very impressed by it, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds.
T-Boy and I had met, but it wasn't actually till a year or so later that we actually got together and played. We were doing quite a lot of different styles and trying to figure each other out musically. It was a good collaboration because nobody else was doing it at the time.
Tim had been working with him for a number of months, and he always came back after a weekend session and showed me tapes, and I was very intrigued hearing this music.
It was interesting playing in Ti-Garçon and different versions of it, because Israel pretty much let me do what I wanted to do and encouraged, being a bass player himself, he wanted to hear that in the forefront of the music.
Having Tim come on board with La Dernière Génération at the time that he did, was absolutely amazing. Face the Nation, Raconte-moi une histoire, and Vue de nos ancêtres can be well attributed to Tim. Always said, this guy's gotta be part of the band.
It wasn't until I started doing some audio work for a friend of mine. I had a local production company. My brother and Israel and a drummer had a great band together. We were just blown away by the music.
Congratulations!
Monsieur, mesdames, Alvin Felix, Tim Carey, Israel Roses, on est la dernière génération, à demain.
I recall one time going down to Tim's for a rehearsal, and when I got down there, Tim had asked me to go down to the basement, and as I was walking down the stairs, he told me, he said, by the way, my brother Sean is downstairs. And when I got down there, I heard what was coming out of this guy's amplifier.
Came down and introduced himself, and I had mentioned to him about listening to all the prior projects that him and Tim did together. But I remember that Israel immediately took interest in what I do and thought that it would be a great asset maybe to his projects and what he was about to accomplish.
Right from then on, it's unbelievable the evolution of the music. I have an older sister by the name of Nancy, and when I was very young, she had always referred to me as Ti-Garçon, and the people in the community, who are mostly English, didn't know what that meant. So she explained to them that Ti-Garçon in English meant little boy, T-boy. So I was referred to as T-boy up until my mid-20s, until I really got seriously back into the music, and where I found myself reiterating the name that she gave me, Ti-Garçon.
What Israel taught me was just being able to take your talent and hone in and focus on an area of your expertise, and he really put me in that direction before he left Newfoundland.
I think it was 2007. I got word that Sean had moved down to Oakville, so I went down. There was Dave, Tim, and Sean.
I had just purchased a house in Oakville with a nice basement for music. Myself and my brother Sean and my brother Tim moved up to Ontario from Alberta.
I just remember Israel showing up at the door in Oakville. But we never thought about putting a show together at that stage. But as soon as Israel showed up at the door, everything changed. And that's the way it's always been.
At that time, Tim had gotten us a gig at a venue called the Black Swan, which is located in the entertainment district in downtown Toronto.
The show just went over really well. It went over really well. We had harmonies all worked out. We had stand-up bass. I was playing the guitars. Israel was playing the drums, which was the first time I ever played with Israel on drums on stage. But Israel's a multi-instrumentalist anyway. And he's just able to adapt, and whatever the band needs, he just does what he got to do.
Playing in downtown Toronto was fun, it was exciting for us, but soon after we disbanded. Some of us went to college, some worked on solar projects, so me and Dave took the initiative and we started playing out in the clubs.
Over the years, Israel's gone through many different styles of music. He's gone from hard rock to some dance music to folk. Myself and Israel figured, well, we'll get together and as a duet. It went over very well.
I remember Dave ended up in another band at the time. I remember Israel again showed up at my door.
He just mentioned out of the blue, he said, Dave's in this band and they're playing at this small town. And I thought, let's go check it out.
I was out playing with this classic rock band, and who should show up but Sean and Israel. It was great to see them out because I hadn't seen Israel in about 3 years at that time. The very next day, Israel calls me up.
And he started laughing and he said, "You're not going to believe what happened to me just a few hours earlier." I said, "What?" He said, "I was outside trimming a tree, I lost balance,
fell off, broke 3 ribs. And I said, well, you can come and visit me, but you're going to have to do all the work in the house."
You know, my first impression was like, oh my God, Brother Dave got hurt really bad. And Israel was very instrumental in helping Dave out.
Yeah, I started coming around like on a daily basis, but there was no clear indication at that time that we would actually go back into music.
Israel was looking around and said, well, yeah, you got some equipment there, and why don't you record some music?
When those tracks were done, I looked at him and I said, "We gotta call Sean over."
Music was great. The whole backing music was incredible.
I had a bunch of lyrics written down and nothing recorded, no music to it.
And the first song that popped up at that time was "Here to Stay." Nice song. You know what? Couldn't get over that Dave had written this song.
I didn't expect that aspect coming from Dave, like just taking poetry. I knew he wrote poetry, but I didn't think he would ever take it to that level.
It's just different when you're recording your own material. It's like, okay, that's sounding good enough, and then Israel had to push, no, you can do better than that, no, go ahead, try it this way. And sometimes, a little bit of friction there, but the end result was really good when you do strive for perfection.
You know, you got someone who hasn't really written songs and put it to music and was recording for the first time. Okay, and then you had a guy like me who was saying, like, that's wonderful. Can you do that line again, or can you change this word? And when Sean came into it, it was totally fortified.
Sean's just a great player all around. Really puts the finishing touches on all our recordings.
I was kind of used to Israel taking charge, even back in the Newfoundland days, because he wrote his own material and he promoted himself. And so it wasn't unlike Israel to take that role. He knows how to take a lyric and make it commercial. If it doesn't need to be commercial, he can take it another route.
There are 2 songs in particular that myself and Israel have collaborated on. One is Betrayed, the other one is Just Not Ready Yet.
Ended a recording session around 11, 12 o'clock at night. I jumped on the piano and I started playing this little melody. I looked at Dave and I said, "There it is." He said, "What?" I said, "The song that I was writing for Dee Dee." I said, "There it is, it's done." He said, "What?" For him, he couldn't understand. All he was hearing was the piano. I was hearing the piano, I was hearing the orchestrations, I was hearing the background vocals.
The song that really kind of touched me is a song called Missing You.
I am missing you so. I'm missing you. I take back all those words you know. I take them back. The consequence of letting go. Consequence of letting go. Is never worth the hurt you know.
The nature of what the song talks about and everything else. I just saw this high level of maturity in Israel's writing and where he was going with music.
I'd say the best song present now is the song about the Credit River.
It was a beautiful day, but the sun's gone away and I'm alone in the dark. And even though you said that you would never leave, I know we've lost that spark. And
Credit River was much the same idea. Nice, solemn, talking about nature.
Just incorporates all the beauty of the park and around surrounding area of the Credit River. Back when Israel and Tim, of the early days, and their band Ti-Garçon, And Israel would have the video camera everywhere they went.
As much as that went on with playing in the band Ti-Garçon, seriously we were with the music. What people actually never really realized was that Israel was cataloging this entire journey from start to finish. Everywhere he went, he had a camera. A lot about what went on behind the scenes, the antics and the fun that we had on the road and touring and kind of letting our freedom go. It was being a bunch of goofs out in a bus somewhere on the road.
Israel has always had a vision, when it comes to recording music. It's not so strange that he would look to video to try to recreate what he sees and what he writes about.
Can somebody get me out of here? Somebody, can somebody get me out of here? Somebody, can somebody get me out of here? Somebody, can somebody get me out of here?
He had met up with this art student. She had a cartoon and she wanted some original music put to it. Israel was working on that with her, and she was a dancer as well.
I was working on a film that is animated, and I just really need someone that knows composition.
She had contacted me one day and she was working on a final. It was a 4-minute animation that she called Straight Line Pigs. And she asked me to score it for her.
He did a great job and helped me realize a lot of the visions of the film. A month later, he called me up and said like, hey, can you help me out with my video? And he showed me all this like great music about love and passion, and I really like the style, and there's something really has certain depth to dig into it.
The first song I wrote was called Missing You, and I called her up. I saw the dance moves that she would perform. I thought it was kind of awe-inspiring, and the question was, could I put that in the video and make sense of it musically?
From knowing him more and more, I realized that he's not just very passionate, he's also very productive. And we started this journey.
A lot of the times we found ourselves like in the pit of like a group of people, and we just kept shooting. And we didn't care because for once we were expressing ourselves. And because of that expression, you felt free. And it's something I haven't felt in a long, long time.
Really touching at how much effort he put in. And he doesn't feel it, and I don't feel it because we are having fun.
When the time came and there were still a few songs that still didn't have videos, I started talking to Didi.
He came all the way from Toronto to shoot me to Vancouver. He came all the way just to shoot the video, and that's really touching. And I feel like his passion and his dedication is really great.
A lot of people ask me about the inspiration, but this album, every song's tailored for Didi, reiterating me as a musician and calling me out that that's something I should pursue. Pursue is a big word. It doesn't mean get rich. It just means be content with your life.
Do you remember the love that we once shared? Do you remember the way that we both cared? Do you remember the way we both were back then?
When I saw the clips, I just thought she's absolutely perfect for the project. Got me thinking right away that this project is even getting better than what I initially thought.
We're finally getting close to the end result of the recording and video, driving towards getting all our thoughts of music and talent together.
It allows me to express who I am and to be the artist I want to be.
Compact the entire showcase as songwriters, as videographers, as musicians.
It all put into perspective and focused in.
We're at the stage of our lives now, and you look back and you realize that's really at heart. That's what we wanted to be, was musicians.
I would say the world is a nicer place since I met Israel.
It worked.
Broke a string. 5 strings. Deny it. Deny it. You did not.
Oh, that was fucking nice.
Can I have Mr. Israel Roses? Mr. Israel Roses.
Didi, any commentary on today's shooting?
Fantastic, awesome, gorgeous, beautiful, fucking amazing.
Hey, number one! Didn't go on, boy. You're not bad.
I know I see. Okay.
I know it's not a murder.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Israel Roses. Could I have a comment, please?
Just recently, Israel got back in touch with us. With us.
Who's your favorite bassist, Israel?
We didn't become famous right away.
Next session here, our last session here.
Hey, John.
From that moment, forever we would be. I can't believe that you saw.
Oh, you go fuck yourself. Don't ask me that no more.
I first met Israel when there's... Oh, you have to actually listen.
Gotta play with my family and wow. Rolling on that?
Broke the flowers.
It was a beautiful day, but the sun's gone away and I'm alone in the dark. And even though you said that you would never leave, I know we've lost that spark. And you are all I need. Just to hear your voice call out to me would bring the hope in me. 这是美丽的光彩，抬头仰望我的未来，也像是条河，条河，就像那群鱼的曲线，我希望能实现，实现。你知道，我需要你，就好像听到你的声音，我希望带给我的爱。知道我需要你，就像听到你的声音，我希望带给我的爱，我的爱。 But your heart still beats for me, would bring the joy in me. 过去的多少也愿我们一天各一分，亲爱的你过得好吗？尽管你离我不远，我会永远相信。你知道我需要你，就好像听到你的声音，我喜欢带给我的爱。你知道我需要你，就像听到你的声音，我喜欢带给我的爱。I am what you need, so come on back and hold me, and you'll be with me. So come on back and hold me, and you'll be with me. And I am what you need. So come on back and hold me, and you'll be with me. And I am what you need. So come on back and hold me, and you'll be with me.
So the interview's over?
Yes, thank you.
We decided to do an album which was titled, I do believe, Songwriters. I find out Sean is living right here in Etobicoke. He comes over for one evening, lays down 9 solos for 9 different songs.
We did a bunch of recordings and stuff together, which ended up on an album, which I don't think actually made it out there to the public. But it was a lot of fun creating, and it was great to have this, musical relationship put back in order, because all of a sudden I felt high again, like on top of the world, because I knew my musical association with Israel, some good would definitely come out of it.
At the time, he had registered a business, Dave's Music House.
I've always did repairs from my father's home in Newfoundland. Just followed what he did, set up a little shop. Although these days it's hard to keep a job and come home, and they can make you too busy.